The RCMP plan here is to set up these security fencing around the security zones that they're going to establish around the venues, such as BC Place and the P&E and some of the other, like in Richmond, the skating oval or whatnot, UBC. So all these areas are going to have the security fencing set up, and the people who regularly access those areas, whether they're residents or workers, are going to need special passes in order to get into these zones. Along with the security fencing, the CCTV, the closed circuit television, is another thing that the police are really promoting. They've been saying that these things are just going to be temporary and they're going to be gone after the Olympics. But if you look at the history of the Olympic Games, it's common for the government and the security forces to say that these things are just temporary, and as soon as the games are over, they'll no longer be there. But if you look at like China, Beijing, they had something like 300,000 CCTV cameras set up, and most of those did not disappear. They set up a huge informant network for Beijing, something like 400,000 informants. And these kinds of things, like one of the things we say about the Olympic Games is that they strengthen the military police apparatus, because they provide a huge budget to the security forces, and they use this to acquire new equipment and to expand their their personnel, and it just gains more resources for them. Like in preparation for 2010, the Vancouver police want to expand by recruiting 100 new officers and having them trained in time for 2010. The provincial police, RCMP, want to add another 1,000 police. Here in the city of Vancouver also want to acquire 2 armored personnel carriers at a cost of about $200,000 apiece for 2010. New anti-riot weapons, all this kinds of stuff. This is what these spectacles, these big events give to the security forces, and they use the pretext of the anti-terrorism or the political protests as their means to push these things through. The security also expands into the transit systems, the BC ferries. They're all getting millions and millions of dollars for new security surveillance technologies like cameras. Some of the camera systems they want to get to have biometric features where they can have facial recognition, things like this. They also instill kind of a police kind of attitude among the population, where they're saying you must be on guard, like be aware. Like you might have seen the new transit ads where they're just kind of weird advertisements saying don't something about don't report the strange but report the suspicious. And the suspicious is like people taking a photograph of a SkyTrain or something, and the strange is like Daffy Duck walking through a door or something. It's just kind of these weird innocuous things, which are kind of based on the similar propaganda you see in Britain, which is a very advanced police state, where their advertisements on the, it's like Big Brother's watching you, so it's all good. We're looking after you, like with these big eyes and stuff like that. The kind of police state mentality that they're getting people to really adopt. Just say briefly in conclusion, the Olympic Games have a long history of association with basically fascist and military regimes. Like if you look at the history of the International Olympic Committee and who comprises it, it's these very wealthy individuals, a lot of nobility, European nobility, industrialists, as well as former Olympic athletes, who are kind of like the facade that the IOC is all about sporting and stuff like that. But if you look at the history of it, like with in particular the 1936 Berlin Olympics, which really helped the Nazis to really legitimize themselves and to promote fascism throughout Europe. The Olympic torch relay was engineered by the Nazis and was a way of promoting fascism throughout Western Europe, because they did that run from Olympia to Berlin, and it went all through Western Europe. So that's and of course the the Nazi Olympics strengthened Nazi Germany, and there was even West German military officials who were officials in NATO who publicly speculated what the course of history might have been if there had been stronger opposition to the Nazi Olympics, and if countries had actually boycotted it, it could have changed history. Because what happened was it strengthened the Nazis and emboldened them to continue with their military preparation for what became World War II. After that, if you look at the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, which was preceded by a massacre of at least 300 mostly student protesters it was involving a special security unit of police and military personnel that was called the Olympia Battalion, who opened fire on unarmed demonstrators just 10 days before the 68 Olympics began. And that was a way for the Mexican government to crush the opposition that had grown, particularly in Mexico City, where they had huge rallies of 200, 300,000 people in the streets. And so that was a way for the Mexican authorities to establish what they called an Olympic peace. And then during the '68 Olympics, you might be familiar with the two black athletes who got up and did the Black Power salute. It's a very famous, iconic image. And what happened with that was like a protest against racism in the United States and stuff like that. And what the IOC did, the IOC had nothing to say about the massacre. But when those two athletes got up and did that public gesture, the IOC used the strongest measures it could use against an athlete, which was to kick them out of the Olympics, kick them out of the athletes' village, and to strip them of their medals. So you can really see where, what their priorities are, what their kind of politics they have. After the '68 Olympics, you have South Korea in 1988, which helped to strengthen the military regime there and to legitimize the authoritarian government that they had there. And then with the Beijing Olympics, which again legitimized this very authoritarian, basically fascist regime in China. And the IOC runs around telling the world it has nothing to do with politics, but it continually aligns itself and strengthens these types of governments. So this is some of the reasons why we're opposed to the 2010 Olympic Games. In terms of the security apparatus, we see it as strengthening the police and military systems of social control here, which is, in terms of the social conditions we're living in now, is kind of a dangerous precedent to have, because as you see the economic decline and then the setting up of a police state, a very advanced, high-tech type of police state, which we're going to see here, it's a dangerous precedent for your social movements as you look down into the future, just past 2010, and the types of social conflict that could begin to arise here. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't know if there's any questions or comments from people.
Thanks, Gord.